The planet lay under a pale green sky, its surface scarred by deep trenches and blackened craters. Smoke rose from shattered cities, and the faint hum of energy weapons still lingered in the air. The humans had come as observers, not conquerors so the Council on Earth had claimed. But on the ground, in the midst of the chaos, appearances mattered little. War was a language everyone here spoke. Captain Jason Mercer, the human soldier, stepped off the landing craft. His armor glimmered faintly in the dim light, a sleek blend of metal and composite designed to protect and intimidate in equal measure. The alien ground shook slightly under his boots, as though the planet itself was wary of his presence. Mercer's eyes scanned the ruined city, noting signs of both life and death, children huddled in rubble, alien drones patrolling aimlessly, and the lingering scent of burnt metal. Across the square, a figure appeared, tall and regal, surrounded by a retinue of guards. Her skin shimmered like molten copper, her eyes deep and intelligent, filled with a storm of emotion. This was the alien queen Alira, ruler of the Xanthians, a proud species whose cities had been reduced to ash. She studied the human soldier with suspicion, her every movement precise, commanding, and careful. Mercer stepped forward, his armored form casting a long shadow. "I come in peace," he said, his voice amplified slightly by his suit's modulation. "I am not here to fight your people. I am here to observe." Lyra tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "Peace?" she asked, her voice melodic, but carrying a sharp edge. "You wear the armor of war. You carry weapons capable of wiping out our cities. How can I believe you?" "I understand your doubt," Mercer replied, lifting a hand slightly in a gesture of openness. "Armor does not make the man, and weapons do not make a warrior. It is our choices that define us." Lyra's guards shifted, their elongated limbs clicking against the ground. Some whispered among themselves in a language Mercer could not understand. He had been trained to read body language across species, but these Xanthians were subtle, almost alien in every sense. Every movement, every glance seemed layered with meaning. "Observe, yes," she said finally, "but do not interfere. My people have suffered enough from your kind, human. One wrong move, and I will not hesitate to strike." Mercer nodded, the weight of her words settling over him. He was aware that one mistake could ignite a war that would consume the planet. Yet, as he looked into her eyes, he saw more than suspicion. There was pain, a raw grief born of loss. The city around them was a monument to that grief. Their meeting was interrupted by a sudden explosion from the street behind them. Debris rained down as a group of alien civilians tried to escape the blast. Without thinking, Mercer dashed forward, moving faster than any human should have been able to in his armor. His training instincts and enhanced reflexes worked together. He threw himself in front of the nearest family, catching a falling beam on his shoulder. Sparks flew and the crowd froze in shock. The human soldiers stood tall, shielding them from harm. Not a single shot had been fired. Not a single life had been taken. Alira watched, her heart tightening. The humans she had been taught to fear were merciless in battle, driven by hunger for dominance. Yet here was one risking himself for her people without a weapon drawn. When the dust settled, Mercer helped the civilians to their feet. He gestured toward the alien queen. "Your people are safe," he said simply. Alira's eyes widened slightly. She had never seen such an act of courage combined with restraint. There was no performance here, no attempt to impress. Just a human, standing unarmed, protecting those weaker than him. "Your words," she said slowly, "and your actions. They do not match what I have been taught about your species." Mercer shrugged lightly. "People are more than what others believe about them. Humans, Xanthians, all of us, we can choose our actions. I choose to protect, not destroy." For a moment, silence hung between them. The distant sound of battle still echoed across the ruins, but in that square, two leaders faced each other. Testing the possibility of trust, Alira finally nodded reluctantly. "Perhaps there is more to your kind than I thought." Over the following days, Mercer moved among the alien people, carefully avoiding actions that could be seen as interference. He observed, spoke with civilians, and helped where he could. Slowly, small acts began to build a fragile bridge of understanding. A child handed him a small hand-carved toy. An elder shared stories of battles long past. Each encounter deepened his understanding of this world and its suffering, yet tension never fully dissipated. Some Xanthian soldiers whispered that humans were liars, that Mercer's armor hid weapons ready to destroy them at any moment. Others watched in cautious awe, uncertain whether to fear him or respect him. Mercer knew trust would take time, but he also knew that humans could show something no machine or weapon ever could: courage born from choice, not instinct. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Mercer found himself on a balcony overlooking the devastated city. Alira joined him, her presence quiet but commanding. "You moved among my people today," she said. "You did not dominate. You did not intimidate. Why?" Mercer looked at her, his face calm beneath the helmet. "Because strength is meaningless without purpose. We humans, we fight not to show power, but to protect, to save. That is what I do." Alira studied him, her eyes reflecting the dying light. There was something in his words that touched her, something she had never expected. Her species valued intelligence, strategy, and endurance, but never this: simple nobility. She had thought humans were no more than war machines. But here was one showing patience, humility, and honor. The next day brought another test. Raiders from a rival alien faction attacked the city's edge, intent on slaughtering the remaining civilians. Alarms blared and Xanthian soldiers readied their weapons. Mercer, seeing the danger, moved quickly to the front, but this time he did not bring his weapons. He raised his hands, showing he came unarmed. The Xanthian soldiers stared, confused. How could a human face attackers without armor, without guns, without any protection at all? The raiders hesitated, momentarily thrown off by the sheer audacity of the act. Mercer ran between them and the fleeing civilians, guiding families to safety, moving faster than any alien expected. His armor, heavy though it was, seemed almost like an extension of his body, allowing him to leap and block debris with ease. Alira watched from above, hidden behind the balcony railing. Tears pricked her eyes as she realized something profound. Humans, despite their technological superiority, were capable of selfless bravery, unlike anything her species had ever seen. This one human soldier had no need for heroics, yet he acted not for glory, but because it was the right thing to do when the attack was over and the civilians were safe. Mercer stood alone amidst the rubble, exhausted but unbroken. Alira descended to meet him, her expression softer now, her regal armor shimmering in the fading sunlight. "You," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "You are not what I expected." "I hope that is a good thing," Mercer replied, finally lowering his visor, revealing his face to the Queen for the first time. His eyes were calm, unwavering, honest. Alira felt an unexpected lump in her throat. Humans were supposed to be terrifying, cold, and merciless. And yet, in front of her, stood one who had risked everything to save her people, showing courage, honor, and compassion in equal measure. "Perhaps," she whispered, "we have much to learn from each other." Mercer nodded. "Perhaps we do, but we must begin with trust." That night, as the twin suns set completely, the Queen returned to her chambers. For the first time in centuries, she wept not for loss. Not for war, but for the strange, remarkable hope that one human had brought to her world. Outside, Mercer's armor reflected the last light of the day, unbroken, resilient, yet somehow less intimidating than it had seemed just hours before. A single soldier, standing for what was right, had begun to change the perception of an entire species, and this was only the beginning. The city was quiet now, though the ruins still smoked, and distant fires flickered on the horizon. Even after the recent skirmish, tension hung in the air like a thick fog. Mercer moved among the people, his armor heavy on his shoulders, but his steps steady. Every eye followed him, not just the civilians, but the alien soldiers too. Some watched in suspicion, some in awe. Alira observed him from her palace high above the city. She had spent the last night thinking about the human. One act of bravery, one choice to protect her people without violence, had unsettled her. Not in fear, but in a way that made her question everything she thought she knew about humans. The next morning, a council was called. Representatives from the remaining alien factions gathered in the palace hall. Their weapons were displayed openly, a warning to anyone who might challenge them. The atmosphere was tense, filled with distrust and anger. Mercer entered the hall, walking slowly, letting every movement be deliberate. His armor gleamed under the bright lights, but today he felt the weight of more than just metal. He felt the eyes of a world on him, watching, judging, hoping. Alira rose as he approached. Her voice was calm but firm. "Human, you walk among my people, yet you carry the tools of war. Can we believe you when you claim to seek peace?" Mercer paused, then slowly removed his helmet. The room fell silent. His face was unscarred but worn from days of travel and vigilance. His eyes were steady, filled with honesty. "I have nothing to hide," he said simply. "I wear armor because it protects me, and because it is my duty as a soldier. But I do not hide behind it. I stand before you as a human, as someone who chooses to protect rather than harm." Murmurs ran through the hall. Some soldiers shifted uneasily. Their species valued strength above all else. For them to reveal oneself without armor or weapons was a strange, almost foolish act. But others watched in awe. Humans, they realized, could act not out of instinct, but out of choice. Alira's eyes softened. She had never seen such a gesture, never imagined a human could display humility so openly. "You remove your armor," she said quietly, almost to herself, "and you risk your life in front of my people." Mercer met her gaze. "I trust you, and I hope that, in time, you can trust me too." That trust would be tested almost immediately. Outside the palace, scouts reported a new, threatened invading faction from another planet. Led by a ruthless warlord who had destroyed countless worlds. Their fleet was vast, and their ground forces were even more dangerous. The council erupted in panic. "We cannot withstand them alone," one leader shouted. "Even with our combined forces, we will fall." Mercer stepped forward. "You do not have to face them alone, but you must be willing to fight together and trust those who offer help." Lyra's eyes narrowed. Trust was not easy for her species. Betrayal was common, and the scars of past wars ran deep. Yet she saw in Mercer something different. He had risked his life for her people without hesitation, without expecting reward or recognition. "Very well," she said. "We will listen. But any betrayal will be met with death." Mercer nodded, unflinching. "Understood." Preparations began immediately. The palace was transformed into a command center. Humans and Xanthian soldiers worked side by side, sharing strategies and knowledge. Mercer taught them tactics his species had used for centuries, not to dominate, but to survive and protect. During this time, he continued to remove the barriers between himself and the aliens. He walked among their soldiers, spoke with civilians, and listened to their stories. The humans were careful to respect the alien culture, never overstepping, never assuming superiority. Alira watched him quietly, fascinated. The more she saw, the more she realized that humans had something her species lacked: a sense of moral courage, the ability to act for the greater good without seeking reward. This human soldier was not just brave. He was honorable. One evening she approached him in the palace garden. The alien flora glowed softly under the moonlight, casting an ethereal light on the two leaders. "You have changed the way my people see humans," she said. "I do not understand it. You risk your life constantly, yet there is no pride in your actions. No desire for power or control. Why?" Mercer looked at her, his expression calm. "Because true strength is not about power. It is about choice. We humans fight because we must protect what is good, not because we seek to dominate. My actions are not for glory. They are because it is right." Lyra studied him. Her species valued intelligence, endurance, and strategy. But humans added something new: moral courage. It was rare in the galaxy. Rare enough to inspire awe. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent alarm. Scouts reported that the invading warlords' forces were landing near the city outskirts. Ships descended, carrying soldiers and weapons. The ground shook with their arrival. Illyra's soldiers prepared for battle, their weapons gleaming. The human soldiers did the same, though Mercer kept his sword sheathed. He knew the first challenge was not violence, but leadership. He stepped forward to address the council. "Your enemies are strong," he said. "But if we fight together, we can protect the civilians, repel the attackers, and survive. Trust is the weapon we need first. Then strategy will follow." Illyra's voice was steady, though her hands trembled slightly. "Lead them, human. Show us the way." The battle began at dawn. Mercer led small teams of humans and Xanthians to strategic points, coordinating defenses. He avoided unnecessary bloodshed, focusing on guiding civilians to safety and using traps and tactics to slow the enemy. At one point, a group of alien soldiers was cornered by enemy forces. Mercer ran toward them, unarmed, signaling them to follow him through a narrow passage. Bullets and energy blasts flew past, but he moved with uncanny speed and precision, guiding the soldiers to safety. Illyra watched from above, her hands gripping the balcony railing. Tears pricked her eyes again. This human had no armor on his face, no weapons drawn, yet he moved through chaos with courage and skill. He was not a machine. He was not a monster. He was something else entirely, something noble. The battle raged for hours. Enemy forces pressed harder, but the humans' tactics and courage inspired the Xanthians. Soldiers who had doubted humans now fought alongside them with renewed determination. Civilians cheered quietly as they saw the human soldier moving through danger without fear. At one crucial moment, Mercer found himself facing a heavily armored enemy commander. The alien was larger, faster, and armed with devastating weapons. Mercer did not draw his sword. Instead, he used his knowledge, his reflexes, and the environment to disarm the enemy. With careful movements, he neutralized the threat without killing. The Xanthian soldiers gasped. Their species believed in overwhelming force and aggression. To see a human defeat an opponent without violence was almost incomprehensible. When the enemy finally retreated, the city had survived. Buildings were damaged, but the people were safe. Civilians emerged from hiding, some rushing to embrace the soldiers who had protected them. Illyra descended into the streets, moving directly toward Mercer. She reached him and placed a trembling hand on his armored shoulder. "You," she said, voice breaking, "you have done what no Xanthian could. You protected us all. Without killing, without pride, without fear." Mercer lowered his visor, revealing his face. Sweat and dirt streaked his skin, but his eyes were calm. "I do what is right," he said simply. For the first time, Illyra felt a surge of emotion she had never experienced. Respect, gratitude, and something deeper, hope that humans could be allies, not threats. She wanted to cry, but this time the tears were more than sorrow. They were awe and relief. The council gathered around them, sparring among themselves. The humans had proven something extraordinary, that courage and honor could inspire loyalty, change perceptions, and even save lives without resorting to brutality. Illyra turned to Mercer, her voice soft. "Tomorrow, I want to show you something. Something important to my people. Will you come?" Mercer nodded. "I will." That night, as the twin moons rose over the ruined city, Illyra could not sleep. She thought of the human soldier, armored in spirit, courageous in action, and honorable in heart. She realized that humans were more than their technology, more than their weapons. They were capable of something her species had almost forgotten: selfless courage. The day broke slowly over the shattered city, painting the ruins in shades of gold and orange. For the first time in weeks, the air felt calm, almost peaceful. But the calm was only temporary. Scouts had reported that the enemy warlord had regrouped overnight, and this time, his army was stronger and more relentless. Illyra stood atop the palace balcony, her copper-like skin catching the light of the rising sun. Her guards and soldiers moved with precision below, but she felt the familiar knot of tension in her chest. The humans had proven themselves in battle before. But this enemy was different. Brutal. Merciless. Captain Jason Mercer approached her. His armor, though scratched and scorched from prior encounters, still reflected his calm presence. But today, something was different. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he looked at the Queen, and with a quiet determination, he began to remove his armor. The clinks of metal echoed through the balcony, drawing the attention of everyone present. Slowly, piece by piece, the protective suit was removed. Mercer stood, bare-chested in the morning light, revealing the lean strength of a soldier who had faced countless battles. His movements were calm, deliberate, and unafraid. Illyria's breath caught. She had seen him brave attacks, protect her people, and guide her soldiers, but this act was different. To stand before the Queen without armor was more than courage. It was trust, vulnerability, and honesty, all at once. "Human," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why?" Mercer met her gaze steadily. "Because trust cannot be given if it is hidden behind steel. My actions are mine, not my armor's. I fight not to intimidate, but to protect. And I trust you to see that." Soldiers around them shifted uneasily. The Xanthians had been trained to judge strength by appearances and armor, yet here was a human standing tall, unarmed, and unshielded. There was no fear in his eyes. Only courage. Only honor. Illyria's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. She had seen courage before, but never like this. Humans. They were different. This human was different, and somehow, in his vulnerability, she felt the weight of hope she had almost forgotten. Suddenly alarms rang out across the city. The warlords' forces had launched their final assault. Ships descended from the sky, and ground forces poured into the streets like a tide of fire. The battle had begun. Mercer did not hesitate. Even without armor, he sprinted into the streets, moving with unmatched speed and precision. He guided Xanthian soldiers through strategic positions, directing them to protect civilians and cover key locations. Every movement was calculated. Every choice made to save lives rather than destroy enemies. Illyria followed closely, coordinating the defenders from above, but she could not tear her eyes away from Mercer. He moved through the chaos like a force of nature, fearless and relentless. At one point, he encountered a group of civilians trapped in a burning building. The flames licked the walls and smoke filled the air. Without hesitation, he ran inside, dodging falling debris, guiding the terrified aliens toward safety. Each step was precise, calculated to avoid harm. By the time he emerged, the group was safe. And Mercer bore only minor burns. The Xanthian soldiers began to understand something fundamental. Strength was not just about weapons or armor. It was about courage, compassion, and choice. And humans. Humans could be more than any machine, more than any weapon. The battle escalated. The enemy warlord himself appeared on the battlefield, a towering figure clad in black armor, wielding weapons that could crush tanks and buildings alike. His roar echoed through the streets, a sound meant to terrify, to dominate. Mercer stepped forward to face him. The warlord laughed, a deep, cruel sound. "You human? You dare face me without armor? Without weapons?" Mercer's voice was calm, carrying over the chaos. "I face you with what matters most, my courage and my choices." The warlord attacked, charging at Mercer with impossible speed. Mercer dodged, using his agility, strength, and battlefield knowledge to evade blows. The two clashed, metal and flesh colliding. Yet Mercer's goal was not to kill, but to neutralize. With each move, he disarmed, redirected, and outsmarted the warlord. His body was exposed, vulnerable, yet his mind was sharp, his determination unyielding. From above, Illyria watched, tears streaming freely now. The bravery she had glimpsed before had become undeniable. Humans were not only strong, they could inspire, protect, and change the hearts of those around them. Mercer finally maneuvered the warlord into a collapsing structure that pinned him, without harming civilians. The Xanthian soldiers seized the moment, capturing the enemy without unnecessary bloodshed. Silence fell over the battlefield. The warlord was defeated, his forces scattered. The city had survived, and its people had lived to see another day. Civilians emerged from hiding, cheering for the soldiers and for the human who had led them through impossible odds. Alira descended to the battlefield, moving directly toward Mercer. Her hands shook as she placed them on his shoulders, her eyes filled with tears and gratitude. "You," she said, voice trembling, "you have done what I never thought possible. You risked yourself, not for glory, not for power, but for us, for my people. I do not know how to thank you." Mercer smiled faintly, exhaustion evident on his face. "You do not need to thank me. I did what any soldier should do, protect those who cannot protect themselves." She shook her head, unable to speak. Her tears fell freely now, streaming down her cheeks. The Xanthians, who had watched the battle, saw it too. Their queen wept not for loss, but for hope, for courage, for the honor she had witnessed. The soldiers and civilians alike looked at Mercer with new eyes. Humans were no longer just alien outsiders. They were symbols of courage, morality, and honor. A species capable of greatness, capable of inspiring trust, capable of heroism that transcended technology or weaponry. Alira finally steadied herself, wiping her tears. She took Mercer's hand, a gesture of respect and friendship. "You have earned more than trust, human. You have earned our hearts. And perhaps a new era for our people." Mercer nodded, feeling a quiet pride. Not for victory, not for recognition, but for the understanding that humanity's greatest strength was not in its weapons, but in its courage, choices, and honor. In the following days, the city began to rebuild. Humans and Xanthians worked together, side by side, repairing buildings, tending to the wounded, and creating a future free from fear. Mercer continued to serve not as a conqueror, but as a teacher, leader, and friend. Alira often walked beside him, speaking quietly about her people, their past, and their hopes for the future. She had learned something invaluable, that strength, without compassion, was hollow, and that courage could inspire more than weapons ever could. One evening, as the twin moons rose, she took Mercer to a hill overlooking the city. The ruins were still visible, but the streets now bustled with life. Children played among the rebuilt structures, soldiers trained, and civilians laughed once more. "You changed everything," she said softly. "Your courage, your choices, your humanity. You showed us a way we had forgotten." Mercer looked out over the city, his bare chest catching the moonlight. "I only did what I believe is right. But perhaps in doing so, we have both changed." The Queen's eyes glistened. "Yes, we have changed. And perhaps together, we can teach our people that strength is not just power, but heart. That courage is not just fighting, but protecting. That humans can inspire hope." Mercer smiled. "Then let us build that future, Queen, together." As they stood side by side, the wind carried the sounds of life, rebuilding, and hope. The human soldier had removed his armor, shown his vulnerability, and in doing so, revealed the true strength of his species. The alien queen wept not from sorrow, but from awe, respect, and the dawning realization that humanity was extraordinary not because of its weapons, but because of its courage, honor, and heart. And on that scarred planet, under the pale green sky and twin moons, a new era began, a testament to the power of trust, bravery, and the human spirit.